What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Busy Bariatrics podcast. I'm your host, Rob D'Amedio, certified fitness and nutrition coach, bariatric surgery advocate, and your go-to guy for salty accountability with a punch of humor. Let's get busy, and I'll show you how to optimize your post-surgery journey and turn it into a lifestyle of strength, health, and balance. Last episode, we pretty much covered my origin story, and I went into painstaking detail of my relationship with food, movement, and everything else that goes on. Today's episode, I'm really going to pull back a little bit of the curtain and teach you how I coach my clients about the Busy Method. The Busy Method is essentially everything that I teach and I coach my clients to develop and understand and work on when they're working with me in either my one-on-one or any of my coaching programs. It's built around the idea of building habits, understanding nutrition, staying active, putting yourself first, and having a healthy source of dopamine along the way. We put an exclamation point on that, but it spells busy when we get everything out. From 4 years of being a post-op bariatric patient, I realized that so much more of bariatric surgery has to do with what happens when you go into maintenance and how are you going to develop a lifestyle that optimizes your entire bariatric process. I did not realize until after I finished my first 2 years after bariatric surgery that so much of what I learned from my program and the people I worked with was really based on this habit-based approach of being highly knowledgeable on nutrition, knowing the importance of strength training, and also how to advocate for yourself. As I started to work with clients, I realized that workouts were good and nutrition was kind of okay. But where we really made long-term change was when we took this holistic approach to everything that they were doing and really just kind of cranked it into like a system that worked. As I continued to coach and I continued to work, I'd fine tune and craft it. And I realized I was kind of going over the same patterns over and over again, which is a good thing. As a teacher, we learn to develop patterns in our coaching and our teaching methods. And by doing this, I started to realize that there were some overlying arches that were having my clients struggle, as well as people in the bariatric community. All the time I would get on clarity calls and I would hear things of, I know what to do, I just don't feel like doing it every day, or I don't know how to fit it into my schedule. I know I need to eat protein, but how do I make it work so that every day doesn't feel like I'm living out of Tupperware containers? I know what to do, but how do I find the routines and patterns that are going to make me successful? After a while, I started to really hone this down and make it into teachable moments that I would teach on my community calls. And I found that I was still recording and sending out the same 4 or 5 episodes over and over again. When I looked at it, I realized that a lot of it came down to finding a way to take all the pieces that people were taking, put it together, and then kind of optimize it into one spot. So that's kind of how I built the Busy Method. When we did this, it kind of came from just developing all of this program, getting everything together, but taking that holistic approach. So today I'm kind of going to explain a little bit of how I coach it, how I develop it, and what each letter stands for. In the episodes after that, I'm going to go into full detail as to what each part of the Busy Method is and how you can start to implement it yourself. But for today, I'm going to teach you how we get our clients to get busy from day one. So looking at it, when I started my bariatric journey, I did not realize the importance of developing goals, kind of looking at where my nutrition was and where it needed to be, how my relationship with movement was and where it needed to be, and more importantly, how was I going to communicate that with others? From working with different programs and developing different things, I realized that a lot of my success came from learning the soft social skills that we're going to develop. And the first that it really came to was building habits. One of the reasons why I think building habits is really, really important in your bariatric journey is that those habits are kind of the glue that holds every other aspect of your journey together. So many times as a teacher, I found that if I was still making decision after decision after decision, I'd eventually get decision fatigue and I would tire out and eventually just kind of fizzle out. I found that was the same for my bariatric journey. When I put those two together, I realized the importance of, okay, how do I build the habits in place that can help me not have to make the decisions that I need to? And I started to build out the bariatric behavior goals, which I still coach my clients on, on how to develop things like making a meal plan calendar, how to slow down your eating, how to schedule in your workouts. All of this started to come together uh, from realizing that habits are really the glue that hold everything together in the busy method. So when we teach habits, we teach it through the scope of everything else that we do in busy bariatrics. For me, what that looks like is we will work with our clients to pick small habits and then start to develop and hone them so that they run them into the ground. We'll go over what that looks like for the understanding nutrition, staying active, and putting yourself first, and how you can even start yourself throughout the entire process. The real caveat of how we coach it and why we do such a good job with it is we do not progress you on to a new one until you master the old one. So part of the logic of that is a lot of the times when I saw other coaches, they get almost this level of overwhelm of clients need to do everything all at once and put it all together. My main thing from teaching both in Philly Public for 10 years and teaching special education um, is that that really does not work for everyone. And I say that in the best way possible. I found that I could get really good success as a teacher by chunking the things down into bite-sized pieces, really have them master it through repetition so that they're no longer thinking about the process, and then moving them on to a development at the next level. Yes, it did take slower, but the results lasted longer. And the better part was my kids, when they went on to the next grade level, knew the skills they needed to have in order to be successful. It was very similar when my first batch of clients started to graduate from me, is that they found that they were doing the right things, getting the right development, and moving everything to where they need to go. So that was kind of how we started to coach it and how we develop it within my program. The next three letters really come down to what we teach in part of the nitty gritty, but the first is understanding nutrition. So much of what we do in our bariatric journey in nutrition, especially in the first year, our sleeve is going to do the heavy lifting. We can pretty much get by for, or at least I could get by on slamming some protein shakes and being absolutely full for the first couple months. But as my hunger started to open up, and not that like my pouch necessarily stretched or that my sleeve stretched, it's just as time goes on, you're able to eat more volume. One of the bigger mistakes that I made at this part was just kind of incorporating anything willy-nilly and throwing it in there almost like a garbage disposal. And I found it was almost adding friction to my bariatric journey. As I started to get smarter and work with coaches, I realized still developing lean proteins, but also incorporating fruits and vegetables and high fiber options to keep me fuller for longer. And having volume allowed me to eat more meals that I loved while feeling full, while losing more weight. That really is kind of what we translate to our clients. So how that looks is when we coach it in Busy Bariatrics, we are going to have you essentially track your food input for 2 weeks. And it's a judgment-free process. The example I use when I meet with a client firsthand is I really go over, look, if you're eating 6 donuts a day, that is 100% okay. But I need you to be honest about how much you're eating so that we can actually tailor the macros towards you. And by slowly opening up that process and developing it, it allows us to tailor the macros so that we keep them fuller for longer and then help coach them on how to incorporate volume afterwards. This has really helped my clients at every single stage. For people who are newly post-op, we've been able to work with their surgical teams and develop a plan of their eating patterns that is approved by bariatric surgery centers. For clients who are struggling from 6 to 12 months post-op, it allows us to have a clear plan from their surgical center as well of what amount should they be eating and kind of coaching them of what that should look like at every meal and how to handle hunger cues. For clients in maintenance or who are struggling in stalls, they might be feeling a lot less restriction and almost eating the same capacity that they had prior to surgery. And this still allows us to kind of gauge where are they at in their consumption and then tailoring and working from there. It's kind of the beauty of what I believe when it comes to macro coaching is that it's an art and it's a science, meaning that yes, we still do the calculations to figure out the amount of protein, carbs, and fats that you should be eating or recommended to eat in your target level. But in reality, there is also some part of like understanding of how you're looking at a client's patterns and seeing how they develop their eating and working with them. This has helped a lot of my clients and myself really make clear goals, plans, and allows them to eat what they want when they want in portions that reflect what their journey is and what their goals are. But by having an honest tracker that shows everything that they're eating, it allows us to really open up the conversation around food, what they want their relationship to be with food, and how we can coach them too. So that's how we coach about how you should understand nutrition. On top of that, I joke that we could probably teach a masterclass on proteins, carbs, fats, and alcohol, which are the big four macronutrients, and how they can fit in at every stage of your bariatric journey. And really developing programs that allow them to learn that as well so that they understand not just what they are eating, but why they are eating. It's why I really don't believe in coaching in meal plans, is because in reality, a meal plan is so rigid, it kind of tells you here's what to eat, here's when to eat it, and don't deviate off of that. And I guess that could work, but like, how are you going to do that for a lifestyle? How are you going to make sure that if you go on vacation, how do you account for that? If you have a holiday, how are you accounting for that? All those small things and caveats are why I really teach my clients how to really develop the patterns of eating and kind of the rules or theory around it so that they can get everything they want and still feel like they can have their holiday meals and events. They can still enjoy some time at a barbecue or all the life things that happen in between. The next part, when we get to the S, is staying active. Staying active is so important in your bariatric journey. And the more that I look on the internet and see everything else, there's just a wide range of information and ideas of what will get you weight loss through working out. And one thing that I really try to teach my clients is to kind of break that mold of equating working out with weight loss. Will working out help you lose weight? Absolutely. Will working out help you burn calories? Absolutely. The one thing I try to deviate away from, though, is this idea that if you work out and you've burned X amount of calories, now you have more calories to spend. This was a really nasty thing that I worked on when I was personally starting my bariatric journey, as well as every diet that I'd been on for 20 years. And it just doesn't work. I realized it in my finances as well. It doesn't really address that there is a bigger issue, which is a spending issue when you're talking about money or a consumption issue when you're talking about food. So if you're looking to cover your tracks by just earning more money or burning more calories, you're not really addressing the fact that you're probably spending or consuming too much. When we look at staying active, there's a couple different things that I look at. And yes, there are plenty of ways of how to stay active, and we'll go over all of it. But for the grand overview, the two main things that I really focus on come to resistance training. Developing muscle and building muscle after weight loss surgery allows us to increase our metabolic output. It also builds our strength up and allows for bone density, which, as you get older, are two major factors for long term life and sustainability. And then we work on a step goal. I don't want to knock anyone who does moderate intensity classes or burn camps or anything like that. But a lot of those workouts are not necessarily great on your joints if you used to be 365 pounds, nor is it going to be a long term lasting result. When you look at weightlifting and having a step goal, those are two simple things that you can do up until your 80s and 90s. And I use as a great example of my grandmother right now is 93 years old, and she lifts weights twice a week with a personal trainer, and she goes for walks daily, and she's 93 years old. She can still also open a jar, and more importantly, she can get herself up off the floor of her house, which as you get older and there's chances of falling, that plays such a big role. And really, all she's done is monitor her food intake, get her strength training in with her trainer, and go for walks. Walking is such a highly underrated technique, and it's one that I teach my clients to do because almost anyone can walk. Treadmills and walking pads are super inexpensive, and it's something that you can put a TV show on. So, something I always try to teach and coach my clients with is just the idea of before you sit down on the couch, make a deal with yourself that you will not sit and watch TV until you finish your step goal. So, what that could look like is if you're home, just getting on your walking pad and putting it on while you're watching TV, you still get to watch TV, and then you're mindlessly just racking up your steps. Me personally, I have a treadmill in front of a television in my basement, and I have a connection so I can plug my iPad in and have it on the treadmill. I don't like doing my steps every day, but I can at least commit to I may watch the Eagles games if they play at 1 and I haven't got my step goal in. I may put a movie on or catch up on a guilty pleasure show, all while I'm playing on my iPad, texting on my phone, and just getting my steps for my number. Still to this day, I have not really ran any more than a couple blocks to kind of see if that would work. And I've been able to maintain a 150-pound weight loss all while doing it. It's why when we coach it in Busy Bariatrics, we really do try to start you where you're at with the gym and really focus on just 3 days a week as well as getting your step goal in. The final part, or second to last part, is putting yourself first. This is probably the toughest thing to coach and for people to understand to help their bariatric journey get the results that they want. A lot of people, especially parents and professionals, put other needs first. But the truth is, you can't pour from an empty cup. What does that mean? For a lot of my clients, they either work a really high professional job, or they are raising young kids at home, or they're doing both. So there has to be an understanding of if you are doing all of this, where are you fitting in your workouts? One of the biggest things that I see clients trip up on and people in the bariatric community is this idea of how do you put it all together and make it work for you? One way that we really do it in Busy Bariatrics is we teach them how to build out a calendar that reflects their goals. This is critical. So many times in our touch points, we will go over and reflect our workouts and be like, well, I only got one of my 3 workouts done. And we'll open up with like, well, what got in the way of getting your workouts done? It's like, the day got away from me and I didn't get to it. Did you schedule your workouts? Well, no. And it's like, it's a real quick saver that kind of helps optimize everything else. Building a calendar also helps you develop your meal plans and get all of the resources you need in one place so that you can get the results that you want. By having that level of understanding of how your calendar works and putting yourself first, it allows you to get the results that you want. And the other part of coaching that is teaching yourself or teaching people to actually advocate for those things, especially during holiday times, busy seasons, back to school, vacation, or anything else. Even opening up this simple conversation of, hey, I need to get a workout in before I do that. Can we do a later time? Can be a struggle for people, especially if they've never really done this before. So when we look at how we put ourselves first, we really do coach it by getting into the calendar and developing the habits, patterns, and behaviors that are going to get you your results and having that reflected on your calendar, and then having yourself adhere to that level of calendar. For me, it really does help because as someone who works a full-time job as a teacher and then does a full-time coaching job afterwards and has a wife and 2 kids who have schedules, as well as has to meal plan out and get his workouts in, I live and die by my calendar, but I also hold the steady boundaries of it. There are a lot of really awesome opportunities that I either get invited to or that we talk about. And when we go through that, a lot of that comes down to us really reflecting how we put it into the calendar and get it to work. So I'll get invited to go somewhere and I'll say, yes, that doesn't really work for me on that date. But then I check my calendar and I see when the next white area is. And I say, look, this Saturday doesn't work for me for that event. but I do have maybe a month down the road on that Saturday time. Would that work for you? A lot of people really do understand that it's not a question of I don't want to do it. It's actually more of I just can't do it now. And by communicating that and showing up for yourself, it helps hold your boundaries in place so you can do what you need to do. That's really where we get understanding nutrition, staying active, and putting yourself first. The final part that we have to get is how are we creating healthy sources of dopamine and getting our reward systems for this? As we know from our psychology backgrounds, dopamine is a huge driver of behavior, and post surgery, clients need to find new healthy ways to feel rewarded. For me, prior to bariatric surgery, all of my rewards revolved around food, alcohol, retail therapy, um, or just really unhealthy patterns or behaviors of activities. So that's a very common theme that I see both in myself and for other clients as well. So we have to find ways that are going to work and reflect our new goals. One thing that I have them do is write out what are they doing to reflect their new goals and what are some healthy alternatives. So if it was that you used to um, reward yourself with a meal out prior to bariatric surgery, it may be something as simple as putting money in a jar to save for a bigger item. And when we go over healthy sources of dopamine in later episodes, we're going to go over some activities, some skills that I help coach and teach, and give a real good groundwork of what can help to get everything together. So, with that, we really do want to put that together. And by working through all of this, it really does develop my busy method. The busy method is really nice because although most diets, it's a very strict regimented plan, the busy method allows it to tailor to what your goals are and kind of reflect on how they adjust and change. Because no matter where you are in your life, building healthy habits is important. No matter where you are in your life, understanding how food will affect your relationship with yourself and the scale is important. No matter what stage you are in your bariatric journey or in your life, some form of movement is needed to be healthy. Same thing goes with putting yourself first and making sure that you have a clear calendar and schedule. All of those things are going to play the big patterns that are going to help you develop and get everything together. Finally, making sure that you have healthy ways to reward yourself plays a big role. So many times before I would celebrate with fast food, and today alone, as I'm recording this, I had a really stressful week and I managed everything really well. Some of the ways I rewarded myself was I slept in an hour later because I planned my workouts on the weekend later to reflect that I can sleep. After my workout, I treated myself to an iced coffee and I added a protein shake to it. And then I window shopped at a supplement store and found 3 items that were all under $5 that I could get by single servings of to try new products as a reward system. I had one today. I'll probably have another one Wednesday, and then I'll have another one Saturday. So by developing those patterns around everything that I do, it allows me to have success at every stage of my bariatric journey. Hopefully, this has given you an idea of what it's like to learn and develop the busy method, and that this would really help you develop your own bariatric journey. What I'd want you to do, if you're listening to this, I want you to reflect on which area of the busy method you need to work on the most. And if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe you leave it in the comments. If you are listening on the podcast level, maybe you share it to your stories or message me and I can help you with that. If you don't know where to start, we actually offer free metabolic assessments where we help go over all the habits, patterns, and behaviors that you need and help boil it into what's going to play a really big role. On our next episode, we are also going to go into great detail of how you can start building habits around your bariatric journey and actionable steps of what's going to make us happy. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Busy Bariatrics, and the podcast page on whatever listener that you use. And if you think I deserve it, please drop a 5-star rating and review to be entered for a chance to win a free product from the bariatric community. As always, I'm Rob DeMedio, and keep getting busy.